February on I-94 west of Fargo. 43-year-old Mario Butler is also charged with driving under suspension and having no liability insurance. An SUV driven by a Bismarck man slammed into Butler's flatbed tow truck that had broken down. It was in the right driving lane. The state patrol determined that Butler had called for another tow truck but left before it got there. 43-year-old Kelly Hagelrod, who was a passenger in the SUV driven by her husband, was killed. The couple's two daughters, ages 9 and 14, were seriously hurt. The family was returning to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Minnesota. A Fargo man has been sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison for gun-related crimes. 31-year-old Matthew Kraft was convicted of having a gun as a felon, illegal importation, and possession of unregistered firearms. The investigation started when Customs and Border Protection intercepted a package intended for Kraft from China that contained a silencer. A search of Kraft's home turned up additional illegally imported silencers from China, along with an arsenal of weapons, including short-barreled rifles and ghost guns. A 49-year-old Fargo man is facing felony charges after he allegedly assaulted a Barnes County Sheriff's deputy in Valley City. Dustin Lindy was being pursued by deputies in Cass County for an incident prior to this assault, and the pursuit ended when he fled into Barnes County in a car. Sheriff's deputies later responded to a call of a suspicious man in the lobby of a Valley City hotel, and when they approached Lindy to question him, he became combative and has assaulted one of the deputies. Lindy was taken into custody with the help of officers from the Valley City Police Department. Officials from the North Dakota Trade Office are hoping issues with travelers' visas and the COVID pandemic will not be a factor in this year's Big Iron Farm Show. The Trade Office has struggled to grow their international visitors program the past couple of years due to COVID, and reluctance by federal officials to grant visas to delegates looking to attend the annual West Fargo Farm and Implement Show. Executive Director Drew Combs.
You know, it was because of COVID, it's been really tough on our international visitors coming in, but now that the COVID restrictions and some of the visa issues with surrounding COVID are starting to lift, and we're expecting a pretty good delegation this year.
Big Iron gets underway September 13th at the Red River Valley Fairgrounds in West Fargo. 73, a mostly cloudy sky this afternoon. Decreasing clouds tonight, patchy fog, KFGO. Meteorologist Tom Shemansky looking for mid-50s overnight. Tomorrow, a mostly sunny day and 77. Friday, partly sunny. Wind will pick up a bit in the afternoon. We'll have a chance of showers, thunderstorms. That by Friday night, 80. Saturday, partly sunny, chance of showers, thunderstorms, mid-80s. And mostly sunny Sunday, the high near 88 degrees. Mostly cloudy, it's 68. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
You know, there's some fair questions coming in already to the iConsultants of North Dakota Text Club. You can join that all day at 35270 about this rollout. $10,000 and in some cases more of student debt relief. Elimination, I guess is how you can say it. Just gone poof is being rolled out by the Biden administration. This was a campaign promise this last election cycle, 2020, that this was something that they wanted to do. I've got questions on it, and you do as well. And the first one that came in, that's a question I've got. And we're going to be joined by Steve Dorsey here in about 5 minutes' time, our CBS National News affiliate, because they've got the details. They had this whole rollout happen, one on Twitter, but also there was I guess you could call it a teleconference, whatever, with some national reporters providing details. So we'll get some in-depth from him. The first question that came in, Tyler, how could a president even do this? What gives him the power? I'm confused. I'm not too sure, to be quite honest. In fact, I have no doubt that is going to be a scrutinized thing, and it should be, of how can you unilaterally do this? I mean, if this is going to be the case, and I said this with Donald Trump as president, so I'm going to be consistent here and say this with Joe Biden as well. With Donald Trump as president, unilaterally taking money that was approved for other defense and moving that to a border wall without the authority of Congress, I said was wrong. How can you do that? I mean, if that's going to be the means of which you just allow things to happen, why even show up for Congress? Don't need you. Stay home. They'll save us all money that way. Save us all heartache by watching and listening to the news. And that is in part where my mind goes here, just on the actual how to get this done. Because if you're in Congress and you're just applauding this and you're saying, well, cool, I didn't have to take a stand, didn't have to vote on this. Well, how did he get the authority to do this, of just this transfer? So, there's a lot of times people go, oh, you're just so mean to Donald Trump. You don't say anything wrong on Joe Biden. Well, you're wrong if that's where your mind goes right away. You don't listen close enough. But this, I've got questions, as you do as well, on how it can get done. But my question for you is, do you support it? Because instantly this morning I was seeing people go out there and say, hey, look, I'm part of the club that actually paid my loans. I paid off my debt that I signed on the line for. I noticed a lot of people that were saying that, perhaps a little bit older in age than, say, what my generation is. And I bring that up because you and I are going to get into what the difference is and what the cost of going to college has been over the last 50 years, what the cost of owning a home and how dramatically different it is now, the cost of what it is to raise a child over the last 50 years. So you can't just throw that at the wall and say, well, I was able to pay my student loans when it probably costs you $10,000 for your entire 4-year degree compared to, say, $27,000 or $30,000 as it is perhaps now for some of these 4-year public degrees as well. I mean, things have changed dramatically there. But you already seen, I'm going to ask your opinion if you have not shared that already. Is this something that do you support it? Does it make sense to you? When you think about the elimination of maybe $10,000 for some people when it comes to their student loans, does that return on the investment that, hey, they're going to be able to go out and perhaps buy a home? They're going to be able to go out, start a business. They're going to be able to go out and, in fact, have a child in an affordable means. Does that offset the fact that, hey, they're getting a break of $10,000 in your mind? Because there are narratives are being spun out there that you're basically forcing those that didn't go to college or those that already paid off their student debt to basically give a bailout to those that are going to benefit. 35270, that's the iConsultants of North Dakota. More questions coming in. I appreciate that. And I'll try to ask Steve Dorsey here in just a moment about some of these. When it comes to credit scores, when it comes to for new students just starting school, those are questions that I think are just now getting rolled out. In fact, who's eligible for this? And is this going to be something that, say, your child that's going to graduate this year as a senior might be getting enrolled for college next year? Do they benefit, or is this just the rubber stamp for here and now? Keep them coming in. I'll ask Steve Dorsey. He's with CBS National News, and we'll get back into having a conversation of whether or not you think this is an appropriate move given the variety of things going on in the world. I'm Tyler Axis. After he's live on a Wednesday afternoon, we're just getting started. KFGO time is close to 2:15. We'll come back with Steve Dorsey, CBS News, right after this. $1 million in a student loan relief program that was rolled out. This is one of those campaign promises that was uttered on the trail going through the 2020 election. And this isn't something that popped up overnight. There's been long debates on what can be done, if anything, to provide some of that student loan relief. Is this the right way? Who benefits? Who's eligible? Who's not? To find out some of those answers, we turn to CBS News correspondent Steve Dorsey. Steve, I appreciate you taking some time this afternoon. How are things going?
It's going all right. Good to talk to you.
Well, there's a lot to unpack here, I do believe, and I've got a lot of listeners asking a lot of questions. But I think we'll start with what is known right now. As far as, do we know who's eligible for this immediate relief?
We do. If you're single, you file by yourself. You make less than $125,000 a year. You got student loans. You can expect about $10,000 of those student loans to be canceled. If you qualified for Pell Grants, which have income restrictions, you can get up to $20,000 canceled out of your loans. If you're filing jointly, $250,000 is the income threshold. And we know that the pause on repayments to loans have been extended one final time through the end of the year.
So through the end of the year, and I know that's something that was initiated when COVID-19, the pandemic, was really in full force here. And the way I understand this delay and forgiveness for that population is going to be, this will be the last time. So don't get too comfortable with it there, ladies and gentlemen. When it comes to the 10,000 and the 20,000 for those on Pell Grants, is this just for existing debt? Because I've got people that are texting into our 35270 wondering, hey, I've got a kid that's going to graduate this year. They're looking to go and enroll in college next year. Is this just for the here and now? Or is this something, Steve, that might be the foundation for something bigger?
Well, it sounds like the president has been building towards something bigger, including setting limits on how much of your discretionary income after you graduate college could go towards loan repayments and for how long. We haven't seen the details of that. The president says we'll have more information as the administration when they open up these applications for this debt relief. Okay. But so far, this is focused on the here and now for people with existing loans.
Okay. One of the things that the first question, we just started the show here at 2 Central Time. I know you're out on the East Coast there. And before I even turn the microphone on, somebody's asking, how can a president do this? How can an individual unilaterally, or the administration, we can broaden it up a little bit. What's the reasoning they're giving here? Because if I were a member of Congress, I'd be saying, hey, hold on a second here.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And that's what some Republicans have been asking, and some in the White House, because where's the authority here? And it's possible this could be challenged in court. The question is, who would have standing to challenge this? States aren't involved in federal loan disbursement programs. So it is a little tricky, but the president calls it reasonable and fair in his remarks that concluded just minutes ago. And already Republicans not only accusing him of skirting his authority, but also accusing him of amping up inflation pressures with more disposable income. They say he'll only add to inflation concerns. And some call it an affront to those who have paid off their student loans.
I'm getting all the above in our text club right now, Steve. I'm sure you're not surprised by that. Well, hey, I paid off my debt, and I know one of our U.S. senators, Kevin Kramer, that was the angle he took as far as the inflation, what this might do, to kind of bolster that. But with that, following the Inflation Reduction Act, I'll be curious to see what the scoring is and the balance of, hey, this is what we're going to do to kind of reduce the inflation, and does that offset perhaps this going forward? Because you think about all the means of which now you can maybe see people buying homes, cars, maybe having a child they couldn't afford before, some of those reasonings as well. This whole situation has been long promised, from the Democratic side as well. There's people, and I know you're just a correspondent with the news, the journalism, I'm more the commentator here, saying, well, this is right before the midterms. You can't tell me they're not trying to gear up some more support heading into that. Are you hearing some of the same chatter from members of Congress?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's criticism that this is a play for energized younger voters to support not only the president and 2024 if he decides to run again, but also the midterm elections coming up in just 2 or 3 months. So yeah, that is a criticism that's pretty widespread at the moment.
This is going to be such a narrow question because I'm in North Dakota, and I've got student loans through the Bank of North Dakota. We're the only state-owned bank, and we do have a student loan program. And we talk about how can states get involved, as far as having standing. I'm going to have to find out, but I'll throw it your way.
That is a good question.
Is North Dakota the one that's going to bring lawsuit on this? I don't know because it's so convoluted what the process is here. And I know after Obamacare, they had some student loan provisions in there that changed what the state could do. But put that in your back pocket, just in case if we're wondering if there is a state that might have legal standing, you might be talking to somebody living there.
Yeah, and that's you could be more relevant in this debate than I guess we first thought.
Well, Steve, what did I miss here? I mean, this is $300 billion. I'm seeing some of the same arguments that have been going on about this topic for quite some time. But what's the thing that I'm missing here before I let you go?
I think you really covered it. I think, listen, it's college move-in day in universities around the country. Mm-hmm. This is happening before Labor Day, right? So there's timing for this. But I think if you were to go to any college move-in day, you get some really excited folks, and probably some parents too. However, that might not be the same for the millions of other Americans who have already paid off their student loans or aren't necessarily affected by this and are more concerned about other financial issues, including inflation and still high energy prices.
Were you at all surprised, I guess is my final question, that they jumped on this? You think about, quite frankly, the way I've said it is some of the wins and the successes from this administration over the last month. You can talk about the CHIPS bill, the Inflation Reduction Act, some of the counterterrorism with Al-Qaeda. There's a number of wins that have happened.
Yeah,
I was a little surprised that this is the timing for it. I mean, you gave good explanation as to why maybe now, but were you surprised personally?
Well, he did have a self-imposed deadline of the end of August, for which the latest pause on these repayments was due to run out. So certainly the clock was running out, and he wanted to offer one more pause through the end of the year. And this kind of coincided, I think, with his broader announcement on debt relief. But yeah, I mean, listen, those are all valid points, and I think the White House has been emboldened by their legislative wins on Capitol Hill, and I think they're just going to try to capitalize on that more in the next few weeks.
Sure. Well, I'm sure they're looking at that November deadline that comes around every 2 years as well there, Steve. But,
right.
Hey, I appreciate your time. I know how busy things are out there and giving us a little breakdown of who's eligible, who's not. And, again, appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon, all right?
Great talk to you.
Yeah, you take care. Steve Dorsey, CBS National News. The Bank of North Dakota, and we are going to be reaching out to the Bank of North Dakota because it is such a unique thing. I'm getting number of questions about do consolidated loans with the Bank of North Dakota qualify for the forgiveness? I don't have that answer right now. I can assure you we're going to try to get an answer for you, hopefully before perhaps even the end of today, because it is such a unique thing. We're the only state-owned bank that has this program right here. There has been some critiquing of what the state itself offers when it comes to interest rates, consolidation, who's eligible for that, and does that, in fact, touch at any point federal student loans? I don't recall. I don't right now. And whether or not if you went into this state program, if you had some of those federal loans that consolidated through them, does that cut ties? Those are all fair questions. I think they're legitimate questions that a lot of you have of whether or not the entire state of North Dakota that's gone through the bank is ineligible for, say, $10,000 in student loan relief. I question that as somebody who has student loan debt in the Bank of North Dakota. Now, I'm not saying, boy, I really want to get my hands on this, but that is one of those questions. I mean, when you had the forgiveness, hey, you can take a moratorium because, some of you don't have a job right now. People jumped on that. I get that. I have those questions. I'm sure you do. As fact, I'm getting a lot of very specific questions, which I appreciate at 35270. In fact, I'll start going through some of these. Tyler, do you think the loan forgiveness would affect their credit score? If so, it might not be worth it. I don't know. And then on the flip side of this, which don't get this statement twisted. I mean, I'm for those institutions that are making a lot of money off student loans, which the Bank of North Dakota is included in there, but there have been some national banks that pooched a lot of students that were trying to find a means to further their education. Certainly they signed on the line. I get that. But some of those national banks that got in trouble because of this very program, I'm not going to feel bad if they're all of a sudden not getting some of this that they were expecting. Before I get you caught up with CBS News, or KFG News, pardon me, I'm going to visit with Greg, who's called in. Greg, I appreciate your phone call. How are you?
I'm good. Tyler, my wife's first husband died in a car accident when she was 24 years old. She had 3 children, age 4, 6, and 8. She went on her own to college at UND, put herself through college and raised 3 kids, got herself a job, and paid off her student loan, and she is pissed. She is absolutely livid about this.
Greg, I'm sure she's not alone in that. And, God, I could only imagine the strength that she had to go through to do all of that at that time, perhaps on her own. And I don't mean to be insensitive, but I'm curious, what year? Just as a decade, because we're going to go over the difference in costs in a little bit. That's the only reason I asked. Do you have a general time frame for me, Greg?
It was in the mid-'80s.
Okay. No, Greg, that doesn't take away at all the strength that your now wife had to go through. I applaud her for that, and I get why she's angry. And I assure you she's not alone out there, because I'm getting it in the text club at 35270. We're going to continue this conversation. There's a lot of people upset right here about this. But KFGO News next. Back with you right after this. Farm and Ranch team here at KFGO.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Came in wearing a little dirt on the shoes. You're out at
little dust.
Yeah, a little dust. You're moving some dirt out there.
Yeah, groundbreaking ceremony today. That new soybean crushing plant near Castleton today, Tyler. Senators John Hoeven, Kevin Kramer there. Among the folks shoveling dirt to break ground on the new plant. And I talked with Senator Hoeven about the impact of the crushing plant for the local economy in Castleton, and will there be a labor pool for this new endeavor?
That's a real challenge. But, look at this area. Look at this metro area. We're drawing people. We're growing. We're going to keep growing. We're 250,000 people right here in this Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo metro. And that means we're, a lot of kids coming up through the system. So we're, raising our own kids here, and they're going to stay here because there's going to be jobs and opportunity. And we're bringing a lot more in because this is a great place to live. And they get to watch the Bison football team every year kick rear end.
Now, the facility is going to crush 42.5 million bushels of soybeans. It's going to create about 60 permanent jobs, Tyler.
60 permanent jobs?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, according to the news release.
Well, good paying jobs, I do presume as well.
Yeah.
Very good. Rusty, I'm going to let you go, all right?
Okay.
You come back, because you were out there for quite a while. You got some more to bring back?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got more audio for next hour. Absolutely.
There's some farmers happy about this.
Yeah.
As well.
Yep. It's a value-added opportunity, not just for soybean producers, but for animal agriculture, too. And we can visit about that next hour if you'd like to.
I'll hold you to that. I'll
Okay.
save that chair for you, all right? Rusty
Roger,
Alverson.
Roger.
You can't wait till next hour. You just go to KFGO.com. You click right on that agriculture tab. Before we get you caught up with some CBS, I'm going to guess that CBS National News is going to be talking about what you and I are talking about, this student loan forgiveness. But Sam's been patiently waiting, and I don't want to keep him on hold. Sam, appreciate your phone call. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Tyler?
Doing well. It's Wednesday. That means I can see the weekend.
It is. We're on a downward spiral to Friday now.
I love that attitude. What's their thoughts on President Biden's student loan forgiveness?
Well, so my thing is I don't really know if I'm really for or against it. I guess I'm for it in the fact that I'll directly benefit from it, but I just don't see how it's going to really fix any of the issues that led us to the student debt crisis. Because, I might get $10,000 forgiven of whatever I have left, but, there's a whole new group of freshmen starting at NDSU here this week, and they're going to be taking out new student loans, and the cost of going to school is going to continue going higher. So I think that's, something we need to fix rather than kind of putting a Band-Aid on it and saying, if you have debt now, here's $10,000 off. Yeah,
Sam, I think you raised some great points because, in visiting with Steve Dorsey there, I said, is this just for the here and now, or is this a foundation for something going on? And we don't have that answer yet. And I can tell you one thing in our text club, people are asking about student loan interest rates. When we think about what's compounding this debt, you think about some of the means. One, it's getting more expensive. And then the interest rates are something that, they're really taking its toll as well. I think you're right. Right now, this is a Band-Aid. This is not going to fix the long-term issue.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to the caller beforehand with his wife that went to school in the 80s. It's, if you look at a graph of inflation versus the graph of, how much it costs to go to school, well, higher education, the cost has risen exponentially higher and faster than inflation. So I think that's really the issue.
Yeah. Sam, I think you nailed it. I appreciate the phone call, and you keep it locked in. We'll get to the weekend here together on KFGO. CBS National News on the way. Nick, all the others on hold at 237-5948. You stay there. I'm coming back to you right after this on KFGO. relief program that was rolled out from the Biden administration. We're going to connect with Nick. Nick, I appreciate your patience. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. What's your thoughts on this rollout? You agreed? You against it? Give me your thoughts.
I'm definitely against, I guess. Background on myself quickly. I graduated in 2007 with my associates with about $27,000 in student loan debt. I lived in the dorms, was on the meal plan, bought some tools that I would need upon my graduation. I pretty much borrowed everything I could. And upon my graduation, working in my field, I hated it, wasn't fulfilled by it. I ended up joining the Army, not just for the college benefits, but that was definitely a perk. I guess the way I look at it is people have borrowed this money to obtain a degree that is not marketable. It's not worth what they're paying for it. There's no return on investment. It's simple math. If you're getting a degree in left-handed puppetry and making $25,000 a year to get and you've paid $60,000 to go to college for 4 years, where does that math make any sense? Go out and join the Guard, join the Reserve. There's numerous non-combat related jobs to obtain these benefits for student loan forgiveness, the Montgomery GI Bill. I just feel like people sit back and wait for someone else to come along and clean up their mess. And I just feel a lot of it can be done with some pretty simple hard work.
Well, and Nick, I think part of what you talk about the marketing of some of these degrees and just quite frankly the expense that these degrees have gone into. That's why I keep going back to it and hearing that the 07. So you and I are dang near about the same age, and I appreciate you joining the military and finding your own means to do this. When I'm getting a lot of these messages and talking about it, in the 70s, in the 80s, things I think were so dramatically different then, and a lot of it has to do just with how expensive it's gotten. And at least where I grew up, there was an expectation you had to go to college, right? That you knew you were successful, you went to college. I think our attitude towards that has changed over the last 5 years. But I think part of what you're touching on is it is too dang expensive for what you get out in the long run, depending on what degree you've got and what job you might have available for you.
I guess I would agree. I mean, look at the push for the last 3+ decades is, further your education, go to college, get a 4-year, get a good job, so on and so forth. But that's been pushed for so long and so hard, and costs have just gone up and up and up that the return isn't there anymore. These jobs that require a 4-year degree, I don't know what the percentage possibly could be, but I would say a good chunk of them don't pay for themselves upon graduation.
Not anytime quickly. Nick, thanks for the phone call. Thanks for what you do out there. I'm looking at this also with some other news that's come out, and there's been another trend. Cost of education has gone up, enrollment's been going down. I mean, NDSU enrollment's been going down for year after year, and we just heard from the new president that, look, it's probably going to continue. I don't think those two things are unrelated. I mean, I don't. You think about the costs, and then you start questioning, well, am I going to be able to get into a job that's going to pay for this? And you look at the cost of everything else going up as well. I mean, you look at that trend of the cost going up, enrollment going down, the amount of people that are now back living with mom and dad, and ain't nobody happy with that, I'm sure. There is a whole gamut of things here. Now, this, again, agreeing with our previous caller, Sam, I believe, saying it's really just a Band-Aid. I mean, there's something I think foundationally off here. Now, talking about degrees and the return on, what do you think the comments were being flung at me as a political science major with a minor in communication? Well, I hope you like working in a restaurant was the thing. I mean, what are you going to do with that degree? Well, talking to a microphone, I guess. And I don't know that you need a degree for it, but so I understand that commentary. I think that's also why the the changing conversation in as far back as middle school, junior high, of trying to get students interested in math, science, those career and technical education programs that are finally starting to get, I think, the recognition that they deserve. And instead of forcing people that might not, quite frankly, be suited or might not benefit from going to a 4-year college or university, maybe an apprenticeship makes more sense. Maybe going and get your education at a career and technical college, because at that early age you learn, you know what, being a carpenter, I can start my own business. I think maybe finally, and perhaps for some too late, that our mindset of what needs to be done for you to be deemed successful is changing. Eric Johnson's my producer. We had told you we're going to try to get an answer from the Bank of North Dakota. He's been very busy back there on the phone. In fact, you got a little bit of information here.
Yeah, so I reached out, and they're obviously still understanding
Brand
what
new,
this
yeah.
is. But I talked with their communications and marketing manager, and she informed me that all the loans held by the Bank of North Dakota are state loans, so not federal, not part of this decree of relieving federal student loan. Right. We've got a request out. Hopefully we're going to get them on within a day or two to expand that explanation a little bit more. But ultimately, those that had loans through the Bank of North Dakota yesterday, they will be the same tomorrow.
That's what my gut told me. That's here the double-edged sword of having the Bank of North Dakota. We can change, say, interest rates. We can change who's eligible right here in North Dakota. In fact, I think it should be done. I know of people that would benefit so much if they were able and eligible to consolidate their student loans through that bank, but we had the bar too damn high, and you and I own it. And it's a return on the people that call North Dakota home. Some people that work for the state of North Dakota, ineligible for the loans here. That we can fix. But the other side of that sword, that ain't quite exactly beneficial for anybody if you go through the bank, is exactly what you just heard. That is what my gut told me was going to be the answer, and I'm not surprised. So for everybody that was asking about the Bank of North Dakota, is this going to work if you've consolidated through? It does not sound like that's the case. You're stuck with what you got through the bank. You can count myself included in that. But you know what? I'm not upset or hurt about that notion. I know what I signed up for. That also doesn't mean that I'm upset that others are going to benefit from this either. So I think the return on an investment, albeit collectively, and I know this is there you go. This is where you lost me, Tyler. If, in fact, this does allow for somebody to go out and buy a home for the first time so they can leave mom and dad's basement, great, good. Go start your life. Buy a car. You can go buy other things from your business, afford something that you create, that you sell as a service, good. It's coming back for you that way as well. So, albeit I'm not going to benefit from this, and I learned this literally 1 minute ago on live radio, that doesn't mean I'm opposed to others getting this benefit. I know I'm not alone in that, but I know that I'm also not necessarily in the overwhelming majority, according to our text club. You can join that at 35270. I'm going to get you this weather update from Tooth Tall Tom. You, me, this microphone, your cell phone. We're going to continue this conversation. If you want to call us, you're welcome to as well, as many have today. Laney's studio line is 237-5948. KFGO time is 2:52. You're going to locked into Afternoons Live. You can call us at 237-594, and I appreciate those that have throughout the first hour here. Tyler, so if you borrowed from the Bank of North Dakota, which has a superior loan program like my kids, you are out of luck. If you took the awful federal loan plan, you get lucky. Only federal government could mess up like this. You know, the where the burden of this lies, I think, is an interesting question. Just in North Dakota, and quite frankly, as I was telling you, or telling Steve Dorsey, we are the only state that could even find ourselves in this situation. And I mean, there are a lot of people saying, well, good. We pulled ourselves up by our bootstraps, recreated our own socialist bank, and people are benefiting from that in North Dakota. It's working. And it, again, it does work. That I utilize it. I'm happy to go through our bank. The consolidation with the interest rate of what it is. You know what? Okay. I'm in a manageable spot. Again, when I say that we could be doing better, I know of people that are more financially hard up, that were not deemed eligible, which you'd think that of the people that need some consolidation, some way of which you can lower your interest rate on your student loans, that population is the one we should focus on if we're going to have a socialist bank, right? So I think that's some of the things that going forward, maybe just within our little bubble here, that could work. But if you're listening in Minnesota, South Dakota, and you've had federal loans, congratulations. You know, this is going to be rolling out. And now there's people all over, and I want to take them in the order of which they came. I don't think I'm going to get through them all today, but I'll try to get as many out. Tyler, no on the student loan forgiveness. Forgive student loans. You better forgive mortgage loans as well. Tyler, it's all relative. When it costs $10,000 for a college degree, my salary out of college was $21,000 annual. If you're smart enough to go to college, you should know what it means when you sign the loan. Simply a vote-buying swindle of taxpayers. And I'd ask that. I mean, there's certainly the appearance of that in a lot of people's minds. Tyler, what level of interest does the Bank of North Dakota charge for its student loan? It makes huge profits. I got to figure out what the number is there. Of what the consolidation is, I don't remember right offhand. But I know that the last part of your comment is, yeah, they're making money. They're making profits off of those student loans, off the interest. Not to the level of which you've got, say, like a Wells Fargo used to, for all the amounts of times, which, boy, you know what? And I'll own this is because of my sheer stupidity. I was on the 5-year plan, and it wasn't much of a plan. It was kind of well, I better hang on for dear life and get through this thing. And I did. But I had to utilize some of those that, you know what, I just needed some money so I could eat. And I was working. I worked every single year I went to college. But the student loans to actually pay for your books, all of that added up as well. I already told you, look, I'm paying it back. I'm not going to get benefited from this. I'll continue on with your thoughts, 35270. Laney's studio line will be open this next half hour as well at 237-5948. CBS National News on the way. We'll check in with Paul Jurgens. I'm Tyler Axis. This is KFGO Fargo. We got a lot of facts about life coming into the text club at 35270. But the Facts of Life did premiere 1979 with Trudy, right? It was Trudy. What was the mother figure? I almost said something very offensive about her character. What's her name? 35270.
Jeez, I should know that one.
I can picture her. Didn't she look like the woman that the cartoon that was?
She looked like every early 80s sitcom mom.
But like the Magic School Bus cartoon, right?
Oh, yeah. Is that Miss Bliss?
Sure.
Nope, that's from Saved by the Bell, I think.
I don't know. Somebody knows what the mother figure was. I'm so glad I caught myself because people would say, hey, that's kind of ageist, isn't it? We'll get into some of these other ones, including Huey Lewis. The Power of Love hit number 1 on this date in 1985. I'm coming back to all of your thoughts. Student loan relief, for or against it, right after KFGO News.
KFGO News, cloudy, 71 degrees. I'm Paul Jurgens. The Cass County State's Attorney's Office has charged a Minot man with negligent homicide and reckless endangerment in a deadly collision last January on I-94 west of Fargo. 43-year-old Mario Butler is also charged with driving under suspension and having no liability insurance. An SUV driven by a Bismarck man slammed into Butler's flatbed tow truck that had broken down. It was in the right driving lane. The State Patrol determined that Butler had called for another tow truck but left before it got there. 43-year-old Kaylee Hagerot, who was a passenger in the SUV driven by her husband, was killed. The couple's 2 daughters, ages 9 and 14, were seriously hurt. The family was returning to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Minnesota. A mother killed her son before taking her own life in Bismarck. Officers went to a home after police received numerous requests for a check on the woman and her son. Officers found the bodies of 45-year-old Michelle Myers of Tennessee and 25-year-old Dylan Myers of Bismarck. The preliminary investigation shows a mother killed her son and then herself. Autopsies have been ordered. With the new school year underway, University of North Dakota President Andy Armacost has a message for students. Armacost is urging students to make smart decisions and stay away from drugs. Some may be laced with fentanyl. He mentioned a recent 3-day span in Fargo that saw 4 apparent opioid overdoses. 3 people died.
I can think of nothing more tragic than having an entirely preventable death from happening to one of our students or our faculty or staff members, but in particular our students. I have a responsibility, the campus has a responsibility to make sure that we take care of you while you're here at UND. And to those who are distributing, you have no place on our campus.
Armacost says anyone struggling with addiction should seek help from the University Counseling Center. Authorities have located a mother of an infant girl who was found Sunday night at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Minnesota BCA says that girl, who is believed to be about 10 months old, came to the airport on a Metro Transit light rail train with a woman in crisis who was not related to the girl or her legal guardian. The BCA now says the child has been identified and her mother has been found safe. KFGO weather from meteorologist Tom Shemansky. About 73 for the high this afternoon, mostly cloudy sky. We'll see decreasing clouds tonight, patchy fog, 55, 77, mostly sunny tomorrow. It is cloudy, 71. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
With the amount of text coming in with the name, I feel like I'm being shamed for not knowing it. 35277. I couldn't remember the mother figure, and I've got to very focus when I say the mother figure of the Facts of Life. So Mrs. Garrett. Okay.
To defend you just a little bit, and this isn't a great defense always, but it did premiere 7 years before you were born, right?
Yeah, but I still watched some.
For me, all of those early 80s sitcoms get kind of blended together, so I forget which one is which.
Well, there's probably a reason, because listen to this text. Her name was Mrs. Garrett. The Facts of Life was a spinoff of Different Strokes, as was Hello, Larry. Now, I have never in my life heard of Hello, Larry. Should I have? If you want to shame me about not hearing of Hello Larry, 35270. So you had Mrs. Garrett, Tootie, Joe, Blair, and Natalie. And if I remember, Blair was the troublemaker character, right? Is that the appropriate way to describe Blair? I don't know.
The rascal?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. But here's a question I have for you, because I was dumbfounded, as often happens here. Take all your cheap shots you want. When I found out that the cast of Cheers, for example, when they were filming Cheers, like Norm was my age. Now, Norm looked like he was 50 years old during the filming of Cheers, not 35 years old. So I'm wondering, how old do you think Mrs. Garrett was during the filming of The Facts of Life? Because she looked like she was maybe 55 or older. Are we going to put her in her mid-40s?
All right. Charlotte Rae was the actress who played, and born in 1926. So if she would have been, yeah, she would have been 40, 50, 55 when it is.
Yeah,
55.
Math
so she,
so she looked her age then, not somebody in their 30s that looks like they're 50-something. I mean, there's jokes out there that be had about people think I'm a lot older than I am, too. It's because of my old soul. I'm a bitter old man in his 30s. 35270. Thanks for informing me about all the facts of life. Let's talk about the facts that have been sent in and the facts of your life about student loan debt. Look, I've shared a lot of the people that are very upset about this, and there's sprinkled in people with some positive things. But there's a lot of them here, and I'm going to try to share some that stand out to me. Tyler, I paid my way through college and was against this until I came across an old receipt and realized an entire semester was $300 less than one course for my daughter, who is a college senior. That is a great text to get in. It is. I mean, when we look at, in fact, let me pull up. I've been teasing this for about the last 3 days because I found this marketplace article that compared what things cost in 1972 compared to what they cost now in 2022. Cost of a home, 1972, $189,000. Cost to here in 2022, $440,000. Now, granted, you think about some of the large markets that probably skew some of these numbers. Cost of college, 71 to 72, $10,000 for a public four-year college. 2021 to 2022, that now costs $24,600 for a public four-year college. I mean, you think about how much money people have made off of college. I mean, spending a few $100s for a book you might crack a couple of times and then trying to return that and getting pennies on the dollar. I mean, there's been a lot of things I think that have been a long time coming in fixing the cost of college. Will this go the way of which we would hope to fix that? I don't think so. Some debt, yeah, will it allow for them to maybe buy a home? Sure. Maybe even start a family. The things that why can't people do these things? Well, one, they can't afford to do them because everything has gotten so much more expensive. And let's be real, there's been an expectation on a lot of people for a long time that if you wanted to be deemed as a success, you had to not just graduate high school, you had to go get a college degree. If not, you weren't in the eyes of whatever stereotypes we had a success. I'm glad that's finally changing. There are some noble professions out there that you can go and just learn about the trade from being an apprentice to somebody. Somebody that works as a plumber, for example. You can make great money. You can afford perhaps that lake home that some people have dreamt about. And now people don't shun on those professions as much as I think they used to. I think that's a good thing. I'll get back to these messages, but you know the rules. Phone calls come first, and Paul's called in at 237-5948. Paul, how are you today?
Good. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks for calling in.
I think they're going about this the wrong way. Our daughter had substantial student loans, and the interest rate from the federal government was, I believe, 8%. think rather than forgiving 10 grand, they need to do something about the interest rates on those loans. At the same time, because this is what we did, we could get a mortgage loan for about 3.5, I think it was. And we paid off her student loan, took a mortgage on our house, and over time they'll pay us back. But the savings per month were substantial. You knock off 10 grand, and yeah, it helps. But you lower the interest rate, and that compounds over the life of their loan, which is going to be still substantial. If you're going into college, you should be smart enough to understand that you took on an obligation that they can't foreclose on it. You can't default on it. You're going to have to pay it back. And the average was 30-some thousand. You drop 10, you still got 25,000. If they couldn't pay back 35, they're going to struggle to pay back 25. And a cut in interest rates would have gone a lot farther than just $10,000 deduct.
Paul, I think you brought a lot of common sense as far as some other avenues that could have gone a long ways for probably a broader scope of individuals as well. You know, to have an 8% interest rate, that's what people were making money off of these student loans, you know, and unfortunately, like you said, signing up for it. I can tell you, and if you're a regular listener, you probably know this, I can get quite naive at times. And I can assure you some of those times in college, boy, was I naive when I just needed money to make it through, even as I was working, trying to get that, you know, and that sometimes just because of perhaps not dedicating my mind to the classroom as much as I should. Well, you know, the only options available are some of those higher interest rates. And it, you know, it was the way of which it was. And I'm paying those off now, you know, Paul. And I think it's, yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned naive, but how many 18 and 19-year-olds are going to know what they want to do with the rest of their life? So they're going to 4 years of college thinking they're going to have a career that's going to last them the rest of their life, get a good job, and they can pay it back. And that's just not reality either.
No, you're right.
They're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Paul, you're right.
So,
yeah. Hey, thanks for the phone call, Paul. I mean, the interest rate itself, I think, I bet more people would find themselves in agreement that is a course that you could get behind more than this perception of, well, here's $10,000. If you're going to vote in the midterms, you know, would appreciate maybe that return on investment. The amount of pressure that it goes on when you are first going into college. There are people that are moving to Fargo for the first time right now, or moving to Minneapolis or St. Paul, wherever, those larger areas where those colleges are. That's not fair. I could say Mayville as well. There's excitement. There is a lot of confusion. And Paul is right. I changed majors no less than probably 3 times. Ended up coming back to one that I started off with because I had no clue in the world what I wanted to do. But I knew, because that's what has been repeated to a lot of people, is that if you wanted to be something, you had to go to college, right? So I knew I had to go to college. Didn't know what I was going to do once I got there. Didn't know how from a class of 16 to now be mixed in with a classroom of 400 or whatever it was in that freshman year. And then to have the responsibility, which, you know what, at 18, I signed up for it. And there are a lot more difficult decisions that 18-year-olds make. In fact, one person called in saying that when they didn't know what they could do, they decided to go sign up to run the military. There are people that have made tougher decisions than I get that. But we expect them as adults, but probably not knowing necessarily the whole real world, because I love y'all, high school, guidance counselors were really there, but there were some things that I think we could focus on a little bit more in educating real world things and getting people ready for what comes after the hallways of your public school, like student debt, what other things when it comes to loans, those finances, that I don't know is as big of a priority in those high school hallways than some other things that we all knew at the time. We're not going to take this to the real world, but you had to do it. You didn't have a choice. Knowing that, all right, well, signing up for a loan for 8% interest, look, I'm just looking to make sure I can still afford rent and feed myself, because you know what, I'm working a minimum wage job, still got some teeth in the game. But I mean, there was some people out there in college that are working at least 25 hours, if not more, a week, still got a full-time workload in college, and they're still not able to really break even. And I think that's more of a systematic problem than a $10,000 reduction for the here and now. Until we really get a grip on what's causing this to be outrageously expensive foundationally, then this is, I think, just a Band-Aid. And for everybody saying that it's just Republicans that are kind of pounding tables about this, I just saw on one of our national news that a former Barack Obama economic advisor saying that this was reckless. Now, for those out there that are benefiting, I don't fault you. I'm not upset. I'm happy for you. I just think that there is so much more that can be done for a long-term fix than just a $10,000, here you go. More thoughts coming in. I tell you, I will try to get more of these messages. Priorities come to our phone calls, at 237-594. A lot of great conversation today. Text Club is full at 35270. I will come back to that right after this. Again, about the cost going into college back in their day. And let's just say there's probably a lot of people out there that could have afforded their month rent, their books, their tuition, all by throwing a kegger at their apartment. It's not the way it is anymore, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you that. 35270 is where I'm reading these texts. Tyler, why is student loan not interest free? Because bankers make so much money from them. It seems to me zero interest student loans would be a great investment in our young people. And watch Hovind fight that. Well, I think that, in addition to what our previous caller Paul just said, sure, that makes, there could be, I bet, more people that get behind that than what was rolled out earlier today. And you're right. I said people are making money off this. That's why. I mean, if you think about what an 8% interest is, and sure, I'll get in trouble maybe by throwing this. Wells Fargo was notorious for, didn't they just get in trouble for some of this not very long ago? Now, there have been just repeated stories about national banks and the interest rate, and then when you try to work with them to consolidate or to do whatever, to maybe move it to someplace else, that might have a lower interest rate because maybe you turn life around, you're starting to get better grades, and then you know the amount of stress and fight you got to put in to even moving that stuff because they know that they are not going to get the amount of money off of interest from you. They are making so much money off of student loans. And again, it could be a reduced rate here at the Bank of North Dakota, which it is, the consolidation rate. If you're eligible for it, take advantage of it. But they're still making a lot of money off of student loans from that socialist bank here in North Dakota as well, whom I do believe at one time John Hoeven that you referenced was in charge of before becoming governor. I have two kids who have graduated college and who have federal student loans and other state loans for college. The University of Minnesota grad of 2015 spent $23,000 per year for tuition, room, and board. She's in the Air Force and able to pay her loans, but $10,000 will help a lot. The other grad changed schools. Sorry, I jumped around and more text comments. The other grad changed schools a couple of times and jobs a couple of times. Is now planning a wedding and buying a house. $10,000 will help that young couple a lot too. This will help a lot of people. I mean, millions of people are going to have a benefit of this. And again, I'm not mad at them. There's a lot of people in this text club that are. But again, I know there's bigger ways in which we can do this, and I'm sounding like a broken record here. This is a Band-Aid. It is. It's going to help a snapshot right now of people. We heard from Steve Dorsey in CBS News that future generations, if there's not something bigger done, they're not going to have the benefit of this. So this won't help your grandchild, perhaps, when they graduate. But for those that are going to benefit from this, I at least can come with some rest and peace of mind thinking, all right, if you're able to get this off of your worries, off your financial balance sheet, and it allows you to go and do some things that then return that back into the economy. You're spending money at my store. You're buying products from people that advertise right here on KFGO. Whatever it might be. And then, okay, there's a little bit of a return. Now you're going to say, well, look, this isn't just, it's not canceled. It didn't just poof disappear in the thin air. There's somebody paying for this. There is. I mean, our taxes are going towards this. You're right. And there's people upset about this. And I know a lot of you are going to be consistent in this, but there are other businesses at the very far end that have a lot of, well, we'll just call them handouts that didn't have to pay anything back either. I hope that you're consistent, at least if you're going to be upset about some of these things going out and who's benefiting, that you look at some of those places that might not be paying taxes, for example, because they're able to game the system on the high end, things that you're not allowed to do either. I hope you're as upset about that, because there was a lot of people angry pounding tables about this today that voted for those loopholes, that think it's an outrage that the lower class, maybe, when it comes to college, they shouldn't get any break. But those up there that are able to move money from one account to the other so they don't have to pay taxes, well, it just doesn't add up. At least show consistency, as many of you, I think, are. Here's what's coming up. I got to get you caught up with KFGO News. Chris Atterbury, the studio host for your Minnesota Twins. We're going to visit with him about the free-falling Twins as they're taking on the Astros a little bit later on here on KFGO.
KFGO News, mostly cloudy. Fargo-Moorhead 72. I'm Paul Jurgens. The Cass County Sheriff's Office has charged a Minot man with negligent homicide and reckless endangerment in a deadly collision last January on I-94 west of Fargo. 43-year-old Mario Butler is also charged with driving under suspension and having no liability insurance. An SUV driven by a Bismarck man slammed into Butler's flatbed tow truck that had broken down. It was in the right driving lane. The State Patrol determined that Butler had called for another tow truck but left before it got there. 43-year-old Kelly Hagelrod, who was a passenger in the SUV driven by her husband, was killed. The couple's two daughters, ages 9 and 14, were seriously hurt. The family was returning to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Minnesota. With another COVID booster shot recommended after Labor Day, health experts are spelling out the reasons for getting it. Reporter Laura Oakes.
University of Minnesota infectious disease researcher Dr. Michael Osterholm says the new booster contains the same formulation as the existing vaccine, with added protection against the BA4 and BA5 subvariants that have been circulating.
And there is still largely in this country a sense that, well, I got 2 doses, maybe 3, and that's all I need. And yet the data are clear and compelling. The additional doses do reduce serious illness, hospitalizations, and deaths. So I will be very interested to see how many people actually take up these vaccines.
Mostly cloudy at 72. This is KFGO News. .72, this is KFGO News. A 49-year-old Fargo man is facing several felony charges after he allegedly assaulted a Barnes County Sheriff's deputy in Valley City. Dustin Lendy was being pursued by deputies in Cass County for a prior incident, and the pursuit ended when he fled into Barnes County in a car. Sheriff's deputies later responded to a call of a suspicious man in the lobby of a Valley City hotel, and when they approached Lendy to question him, he became combative and assaulted one of the deputies. A Fargo man has been sentenced to 2.5 years in federal prison for gun-related crimes. 31-year-old Matthew Kraft was convicted of having a gun as a felon, illegal importation, and possession of unregistered firearms. The investigation started when Customs and Border Protection intercepted a package intended for Kraft from China that contained a silencer. A search of Kraft's home turned up additional illegally imported silencers from China, along with an arsenal of weapons, including 3 short-barreled rifles and ghost guns. The Bismarck Police Department is investigating an apparent murder-suicide after officers responding to numerous requests for welfare checks on a mother and son found 45-year-old Michelle Myers of Tennessee and 25-year-old Dylan Myers of Bismarck dead when they entered the North Bismarck home. A preliminary investigation led police to believe that it was murder-suicide. It is believed Michelle Myers killed her son before killing herself. Autopsies have been ordered in the case. The Biden administration has announced it will forgive up to $10,000 in federal debt for borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year, these student loans, with the help of a significant number of people in North Dakota and surrounding states included. That's according to a study from the personal finance website Wallet Hub. The study shows that states in the region rank near the top in a category of dubious distinction. South Dakota comes in first. North Dakota is tied for third, and Minnesota is fifth in the country when it comes to the percentage of students who carry college debt. North Dakota's students average about $30,000 in debt, while Minnesota and South Dakota students owe about $31,000 on average. KFGO weather from meteorologist Tom Shemansky. A mostly cloudy afternoon, about 73. Patchy fog. Some clouds move in, some clearing tonight, decreasing clouds with that patchy fog, 55. Then we'll be mostly sunny tomorrow, 77. Friday near 80, partly sunny with a chance of showers, thunderstorms Friday night. Again, 72 degrees. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Riddled or sprinkled in between very thoughtful dialogue and conversation about topic at hand, you get comments like this. Listening partially yesterday and today indicates Tyler still has no clue. But you're still listening, which is what we are just grateful for. Thanks for listening. Some other jokes, and I'll get to those a little bit later on. But Rusty Halverson, he's no joke. He's
I have a good sense of humor.
He's got jokes.
No, I take it seriously. Take the
do.
job seriously.
I've seen a lot of sayings in agriculture.
Yeah, there are a lot of sayings in agriculture. Now, Tyler, let's get to the news first.
Okay, let's do that because I'm waiting for a shoe to drop here. I'm not going to tip you off. That's why I said there's no joke.
The shoe will drop, but there's a groundbreaking ceremony today for that new soybean crushing plant near Castleton, North Dakota. Senators John Hoeven there, Kevin Kramer there. Lots of folks gathered for the shovels in the dirt. And we talked to Jared Haggard. He's a soybean farmer from Emerado, North Dakota. He's pleased with the project moving forward and the potential to add value to livestock feeding in the state with the additional soybean meal supplies generated by that plant.
Well, Rusty, we've never had the capacity of soybean meal production in the state as we're going to have between Spiritwood and Castleton. We've got a lot of groceries that we're grinding through, and it's imperative that we take and look at how to get the biggest bang for our buck. You know, processing's one step. Animal agriculture, trying to find the right word. It's a magnitude farther than soybean processing. It just unlocks so much potential, not only for our producers, whether they're crop producers, livestock producers, but the communities that they're located near and around. Tremendous benefit, and you think about all that wonderful fertilizer.
Now, unlocking that potential and that wonderful fertilizer, a lot of sayings in agriculture, that's the smell of money, Tyler.
That's the smell of money. Not as enjoyable until you get it in your bank account.
Eric Johnson has something to say.
Oh, no. We were talking off air about we were ranking our favorite smells of money from livestock.
Manure.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, you guys were ranking.
Yes.
Do you want to share with the class?
For me, it is the most pleasant is either horse or cow because they're primarily a grass diet. So not a lot of.
I don't need explanations.
I've got a soft spot in my heart for the smell of pigs because I grew up on a pig farm.
Nobody.
And then sheep and birds are the absolute worst.
Towns get worked up at the thought of hog farms because of that very thing. They're like, that's kind of endearing to me.
But I grew up on not a factory farm, and we only had about 200 to 250 head of hogs. So it was mixed in with dirt, and they were rooting around and getting some fresh plant smells in there. So it's
Can't you smell it now, ladies and gentlemen?
Hey, anyone that went to a barn dance on our farm from like 1988 until about 2004 knows that smell, and they all hated it.
Yeah, I couldn't get away from it because I couldn't get in the building. I was left out with the pigs pretty much at the time I tried going off to the Johnson farm dance.
For those dancing, it was the smell of romance.
After a few Milwaukee's best, perhaps. Rusty, I appreciate it, man. You come back tomorrow, all right?
Absolutely.
All right. Rusty Halverson. Sarah Heinrich, you can check out more of their work if you go to KFGO.com. Chris Attenberry, he just texted me. He's at the stadium. The bus has arrived. Twins are taking on the Astros. We'll ask him how the mood on that bus ride over was when we come back after CBS News.
whatsoever for Rocco. I think the only way Rocco ceases to manage the Minnesota Twins is if Rocco decides he doesn't want to manage the Minnesota Twins.
Well, that's pretty direct there, ladies and gentlemen. For all the people that have been asking me that, there's your answer, okay? Right from Chris Atterbury himself. So you don't have to ask me anytime you.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
that's my read on it. Internally, that's how I see it. I don't think that. I mean, they picked him, they brought him in. Everything that is done between the dugout and the front office is done in lockstep, and that's why I don't think that in any way, shape, or form they're going to say, "Yeah, it's your fault. You're gone."
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that happening at all.
Me, as a very casual fan, that's how I read it as well. But I know there's people that are just, and they have a right to be upset because you look at the Central and look at the roster when we're healthy, how much talent there is, and then they start looking when you pull pitchers and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm a fan and I look at it, I say, well, okay, so it's not his fault. Okay, I get that. Well, are we just going to keep doing the same thing? Because something has to change, right? Like, we didn't hit with runners in scoring position early, and we still don't hit with runners in scoring position. We still have the same approach, and it didn't work. So something has to change. Yet again, we're not deep enough. Well, something has to change. You've been telling me for 4 years that our starting pitching is all coming through the minor leagues, and every year they all get hurt. Something has to change. It's not going to be Rocco, but I agree. I certainly would share the frustration that something has to change. In terms of process, in terms of how we evaluate, how we operate, systemically, something has to change. And if I were to guess, I would guess the biggest opportunity is that with the sudden change in the pitching department in the middle of the year with Wes leaving, I would imagine that they would, Pete obviously internally for the rest of the year, but I would imagine that the whole scope of how the pitching room looks would probably be one they would look at pretty hard after the year.
Yeah. Well, that seems pretty accurate there, Chris, and no doubt in my mind. I'm out of time, my friend. I'll let you go. Get back to it there down, and we'll be listening later on, all right?
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah, you do the same. Chris Atterbury, the studio host of your Minnesota Twins. You can catch him back here a little bit later on. The pregame is at 6:30. That's going to be following the drive time news. There are jokes to be made in the text club about the Minnesota Twins. I'll read one of them before I step out of the way. The Twins are not going to end 500. They just aren't that good. Wow. How things have turned. Do you get the sense that people are really eager for regular season Vikings football to get underway? Because I am reading the room myself that way. I'll get back to all the other messages in, but I got to get you these right here. And then we'll come back. We'll wrap up the second hour of Afternoons Live at 4:10 p.m. It's Wednesday. It's not the second Wednesday, but it's a Wednesday, and we got Eric Hatch. Keeping It Real with Eric Hatch will be in the studio. Any buying, selling, any real estate question you have today, free advice, you send those into 35270, and we'll ask them right here on KFGO. Back about what Chris Atterbury just told us, but when he brought up, and for all you hunters out there, all you individuals that own firearms, when he brought up the smell that triggers him back to his childhood, the oil used to clean your gun, boy, did he nail that. I can picture the yellow rag that we used on that. So, yeah, boy, when we think about some particular smells that really trigger it, I have not heard that one before, but he is so right. The smell of freshly plowed ground comes in. Yeah, I like that smell. My throat and eyes, not so much of some of the things that's unleashing into the environment because of my stupid allergies. But I could also say the same for, remember when you're raking leaves? Or if you're just walking through a wood area or stomping on the leaves and some of the aroma that comes with it, yeah, that triggers. We owned the gas station in Leeds. Accident standard. Probably shouldn't say, but we used to play around on the lifts. Not when there was any vehicles, but the smells of some of that would be used for the tires. Certainly gasoline. Love the smell of gasoline. You were making fun of me for that earlier because of a certain movie in which they had a gasoline fight.
I could see you and your brothers reenacting that before it took
Wake
place.
me up before you go. Zoolander.
But you're right. Like anybody that's spent time working in a shop, whether it be on a farm, at a gas station, like you did.
Yeah, like the grease guns have a smell.
All of those lubricants and petroleum products, they all have that nostalgic smell to them.
Now think about how this conversation started. Rusty Halverson went to a groundbreaking ceremony for a new soybean crushing plant. That led into some feed that went into how that turns into, say, some very wonderful fertilizer. That got into a conversation of what type of animal droppings, if you had to rank them, are the best in your mind. That led to hog.
I do feel vindicated that Atterbury
saying
echoed
that, and then he brings up okay, well, I tell you what's coming up. Keeping it real with Eric Hatch. We'll ask him all your real estate questions. If he's listening right now on the way in, we're talking student loan relief. People are asking about mortgage relief. We'll ask a realtor next year on KFGO. It is 4:05, and I've got a fact checker at 4. The only reason I'm going with this is because I saw it all over my social media, and I wonder if, in fact, is this true? Can be. Well, here's the claim. Low water levels in Texas revealed 113 million-year-old dinosaur tracks. Impossible, I said. It's true. The drought levels down there have revealed new dinosaur tracks. So, take that from Snopes. So if you see that out there, feel free, share, comment, because it is true. It's a fact checker for. Here's what's coming up after our 4:06 news. It's Keeping It Real with Eric Hatch. He finds himself in the KFGO studio. I've already told him, because you as listeners, we've talked a lot about student loan relief for some people. And there's been a sprinkling of, well, there better be some mortgage relief next. Who better to ask than a realtor? There are his thoughts on that. I'm sure he's eager to provide his thoughts on that and so much more coming up. But if you have a question about buying, selling, what you should do to up your value, all of that, send it in 35270. That's provided by Ag Consultants of North Dakota. With our phone calls as well, Laney's studio line will be open at 237-5948. Keeping It Real with Eric Hatch right after this KFGO News.
KFGO News, mostly cloudy, 72. I'm Paul Jurgens. President Biden has announced that the administration will forgive up to $10,000 in federal student loan debt for borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year, which will help a significant number of people in North Dakota and surrounding states, according to a study from the personal finance website Wallet Hub. The study shows that the three states rank near the top in loan debt. South Dakota comes in first, North Dakota is tied for third, and Minnesota is fifth when it comes to the percentage of students who carry college debt. North Dakota students average about $30,000 in debt, while Minnesota and South Dakota students owe $31,000 on average. A Minot man has been charged for leaving a flatbed tow truck on I-94 near Tower City, North Dakota in January. They were struck by an SUV driven by a Bismarck man. 43-year-old Kelly Haglerot, a passenger in the SUV driven by her husband Tim, was killed in the collision. The couple's two daughters, ages 9 and 14, were seriously hurt. The family was headed back to Bismarck from a volleyball tournament in Minnesota. The Cass County State's Attorney's Office has charged 43-year-old Mario Butler with negligent homicide, reckless endangerment, driving with a suspended license, and having no liability insurance. The State Patrol investigation found that the truck Butler was driving had mechanical problems and quit running. He called for another tow truck but got a ride before it arrived. Butler left his truck in the right driving lane of the interstate. A St. Michael, North Dakota man has been sentenced to nearly 5 years in federal prison for a car crash about a year ago that killed 3 passengers on the Spirit Lake Reservation. 19-year-old Winter Sky Big Track was driving a car that rolled, killing a man, a boy, and a girl. Another passenger was seriously hurt. Big Track was driving without a license, was in a no-passing zone, had been drinking and taken drugs. The driver of a second car that was part of the crash has been indicted on similar charges. That case has not been resolved. If not for a canola farmer outside Ray, North Dakota, a pipeline might still be leaking wastewater into the ground in Williams County.
Well, he's still a farmer, but he's a retired aerial sprayer, and he still had a plane, and he was out just checking crops, and he noticed a discoloration in the canola. And once he reported it, they had it shut down within a matter of minutes. It could have been way worse.
Troy Cooper farms mustard on the land adjacent, which was also affected by the massive spill, which is discovered in the middle part of the month.
It was hard to detect because, obviously canola and mustard, they canopy so well, so the ground was covered up. I'd probably driven by it numerous times and didn't pick up on it.
Cooper says since the leak was discovered, Hess Corporation, the company that owns the line, has been in constant contact with him with updates and for permission to dig. The spill has been estimated at 1.4 million gallons, which the Department of Environmental Quality says ranks among the largest the state has ever seen. KFGO weather, meteorologist Tom Shalansky is expecting decreasing clouds tonight. Patchy fog possible, our low about 55. We will be mostly sunny then tomorrow, 77. Friday, partly sunny. Chance of showers, thunderstorms Friday night, 80 the afternoon high. Mostly cloudy, 72. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Sure, it's not the second Wednesday of the month, but it's a Wednesday. And we'll make that work.
I was traveling.
You are
Happy to
always
be here
traveling.
now, though.
You're always traveling. What exotic location were you at? Can I ask?
Yeah. Well,
it's not my business.
My family and I took an Alaskan Disney cruise. Ooh. Yeah. So people keep asking, like, how was it? There's 3 elements, okay? First element, Alaska. My first time, 12 out of 10, right? Mm-hmm. Second element, Disney. I'm not a Disney guy, but my kids are 7 and 6, and it's the perfect age. By the way, Disney on their cruises has what's called a kids club. Your kids want to go to it. You drop them off between 8:30 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night, and there are counselors and cast members and entertainers for them the entire time. My kids didn't want to hang out with me. They just wanted to go to kids club. So most of the time when you go on a trip, it is a trip. It's not a vacation. I got partial vacation because my kids wanted to do their own thing, and I got to hang out on the deck with our friends and have a couple drinks. And so Disney, 10 out of 10. A cruise is an interesting combination of a 10 out of 10 and a 1 out of 10. And so if I'm complaining, and it sounds stupid that I even have a complaint about it, was 7 days was a long time.
Of complaints.
Good old Salty Tyler. You know what, Salty? Your beard with salt and pepper and your attitude. How about that?
It mixes. It fits. I look as though I feel at times. Old and crabby.
So my complaints were like, man, the room's really small. It gets a little tiring to have the same buffet for breakfast every day, that sort of thing. I never thought I'd say this in my life. Like, I just wanted a salad for like lunch. And I'm sure I could have figured it out, but I instead had 19 chicken strips each time. Like, who'd have thought eating your feelings wouldn't make you feel good? So, so overall, best vacation we've ever taken as a family. It was so great. And so that's why we're here now. The fourth Wednesday of the month. There it is. We're here either way. Wednesday. It's great. I'm back in like a week or two. It'll be perfect.
Yeah. So if you don't get your question answered, because we're talking, did they have a Star Wars wing at least in the Disney thing?
You're about to hate me, okay? I've never seen Star Wars.
Show's over, folks.
I watched your soul leave your body.
I died a little bit.
You thought people are mad about this student loan relief. No, you're mad about Star Wars.
Yeah, and I'm not even getting any relief.
It's an injustice.
An outrage.
And do you want to know why I've never watched it? For that reaction right there. That's what I live for, is just creating a saltier Tyler Axness.
That's me and Game of Thrones. And everyone's, oh my God, have you seen this dragon thing that's on HBO? No. And you know what? Because you are so happy it's out there, I'm not going to watch it. Because you came to a point at the end of Game of Thrones that all you did was hate it. You said, how could they end this great show so poorly? Well, why would I want to watch this knowing that the ending's terrible? So I'm like, I'm all in and never watching it.
The ending wasn't as great as the rest of the episode. It was but that's like saying, like, hey, season 8 of The Office was terrible, but it was still better than anything else on TV. Wow. You know?
Sure. Okay.
Okay, let me bust your chops one more time.
Sure, that's what I mean. I'm a punching bag today.
Sitting here on this desk, you have a cold brew from Caribou.
Okay,
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
Never even tried.
Oh, I've tried. And then do you know the face that I make is just, yeah.
Well, here's how I got into drinking coffee. Then we'll get to real estate questions.
No, this is it. Coffee and Star Wars all day.
Tell me what kind of gross. Don't ever drink instant coffee. I had a listener bring in instant coffee once, and I didn't know what it was. I'm like, sure, this is like your Folgers, right? You just throw it in, you wait 2 minutes. No, instant. You pour just a little bit in a cup of coffee and drink. It's god awful. Might work for like your
That's
rubs
all
on
coffee
meat.
for me.
Okay, but the only reason I got into this is because I started working at a bank when I was going through college.
Okay.
Because I had to be able to afford things.
I would have just eaten the cookies, but whatever.
Yeah, it was that bank. It wasn't the bank that had the cookies and the free coffee. So narrow that down in your minds. But so I had to work to go through college. I had to have the caffeine to do the homework.
Sure, yeah.
So I got addicted to coffee.
Yeah.
And now there's people getting $10,000 off in student loan debts, and people are wondering, can I get that in my mortgage? That's how you bring it back to real estate radio.
Wow, look at that. They don't call him the expert for nothing.
Okay, so in all honesty here, one of the first questions that came in, it's like, well, you know what? If they're doing this for student loans, what about mortgages? Because and of course, the context was, I paid my debt and my student loans. I took care of that. But this is something that could help a lot of other people too. Your thoughts as somebody who sells property?
Well, there have been times in the history of me selling real estate. I got my license in 2006, so I'm 16 years a veteran, I guess. Having done this for a while, I remember when the market crashed 2008, it crashed on a national level. Locally, didn't crash here. Property values maintained, and the biggest drop we had, I believe, was 2011 when property values went down about 1.25%. That's the only dip in appreciation we have seen and actually experienced depreciation since I've been a licensed realtor. So that is bucking every national trend that's there. But in 2010, 2009, I believe, the government put out an $8,000 first-time homebuyer credit. So to classify as a first-time home buyer, you can be a previous homeowner, but you can't have owned that home within, I believe it's 3 years. Might be 2, might be 4, but I'm pretty confident it's 3 years. So people came out of the woodwork and said, I get $8,000 for free just by buying a house. They were trying to stimulate the economy. So there was free money back in 2009, 2010, and people took advantage of that, including a number of the listeners here right now. Then you and I have talked on air and off air. You were a Hatch Realty client last year, sold your house, bought a house, and we keep saying we're going to tell our grandkids about these interest rates.
Right.
This is the story of, hey, we got an interest rate of 3% on a 30-year fix. That had never happened in the history of our country. Some people got even in the 2s, but most are in the 2s or somewhere in the 3s. I recorded Real Estate Radio, which airs Sunday mornings here on KFGO. I recorded it this morning, and one of the segments I used was to talk about the difference in interest rates. So currently, interest rates are about 5.5%. Let's even round that up and say 6%. Interest rates were at 3%. So what I did is I took a look at what a $500,000 house would cost. Let's take off taxes and specials and insurance and everything else and just look at the principal and interest. If somebody buys a $500,000 house on a 30-year fixed mortgage, that's going to cost them about $2,100 a month with a 3% interest rate. What do you think that cost them with a 6% interest rate? $500,000 house, just principal and interest. What do you think that's going to cost them?
Quite a bit more.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm not sure.
I'm not here to talk math, man.
That's a correct answer. Well, let's get a specific answer.
I hedge in being somewhat right from time to time.
Well, yeah, I was never wrong. I just said it's more. Yeah, there you go. A 6% interest rate, that same $500,000 house, not $2,100, but over $3,000. Over a $900 a month difference. Now, how many payments are there in a 30-year mortgage? I'm not going to have you do the math because I'm watching the beautiful mind scene not happen right now with you, Tyler. It's 360 payments.
I've been talking for the last 3 hours.
360 payments times $1,000 is $360,000. So to buy a home today at $500,000 versus to buy a home 6 or 9 months ago for $500,000 with different interest rates is a $300,000 plus difference. So to the texter who had asked, why aren't we getting money off of our mortgages? You could have and you should have. I don't mean that in a salty response. I mean that in a very true, the government stimulated our opportunity to take advantage of. And that's what happened over the last 2 years is they were trying to keep the market moving so that COVID could be not a detriment to real estate, so the crash wouldn't happen again. They tried to keep it healthy, and they kept interest rates crazy low. So they didn't give us free cash this time. They gave us lower interest rates, which is actually a better win. And the great news is, historic interest rates are still 6% over the course of the history of our country, 6%, and we are under that at about 5.5% right now. So you're still winning. That's the great news. You're not losing right now. You're still winning.
You just made the same argument that some of our listeners were making about the student loan situation. Yeah, $10,000 in direct relief for an individual. Okay, congratulations for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, well, why not me? I did this. But making the argument, if you were to put some of that towards, say, reducing the interest rate and how much more beneficial it'd be over the long term of the loan. So they're smiling. They're like, hey, I got that one right, too.
Yeah.
You got more time? We're going to be here till 5 o'clock. You don't have a choice. You're stuck with me.
It'll be great.
Eric Hatch, keeping it real. That's the conversation. There's messages in about interest rates, others about some specific banks temporarily suspending some loans. You have a question, buying, selling, 35270. I'm Tyler Axedis. This is KFGO Fargo. Eric Hatch Realty. Your questions coming in 35270. This one, it's not, I don't think, directed towards you, Eric, but I'm going to use it to ask a question of you.
I can take it.
Why can't North Dakota work on property taxes? The Grand Forks Herald just reported they will eliminate North Dakota taxes for people making under $54,000 a year, which I told you at the top of the show I wanted to get into that subject because let's just be real. If we're going to keep it real here, there's some people that are going to benefit a lot more from that, which I'll get into at a different time. But property taxes in general, when it comes to buying, selling, all of that, what's the conversation usually like in somebody in that situation? Is it at all brought up?
So, kinda. I think there's three things we have to be aware of. The first is income tax. And income tax impacts people far more than property tax does, right? Income tax is a tax that everybody has to pay regardless. North Dakota's income tax is fairly low compared, like Minnesota's is much, much higher than North Dakota's. I can't tell you exactly what they are, but I know that the line that we usually say is if you as a household make about $80,000 a year or more, it financially makes sense to live on the Minnesota side of things, because when you compare income tax and property tax, you'll be cash ahead if you're making below $80,000 a year. I think I said that wrong. Below $80,000 in Minnesota is to your benefit if you're living there. If you're making above $80,000 because of income tax, it makes better financial sense to live in North Dakota. So first is income tax. Second is property tax. Property taxes in North Dakota are higher than Minnesota. And oftentimes, please remember, you are taxed on the assessed value of your home. That's what the government says your home was worth. You can push back on that, but if the market value is matching the assessment or above it, you're going to have a really hard time. The government doesn't always get that right. Go figure. But the third thing to figure are special assessments. Those are the things. There's nothing special about special assessments, and they don't exist in most parts of the country, but they're unique to here. Special assessment is the tax that will bite you. Because let's use a new construction home. Let's say a $300,000. That's the average sales price right now is about $300,000. A new home out in Deer Creek. You're on a 50-foot lot, which isn't a huge lot. Your special assessments are going to be something like $30,000 to $40,000. That's amortized over a 15 to 25 year period, depending on. What that actually adds up to being is that is many times a larger bill for you monthly and annually than your actual property taxes are. So while I understand the texter's concern about eliminating property taxes, and I'm all for the elimination of any extra tax that we have to pay, there are other layers to this cocoon that we have to unravel to figure out. And the one that is the most complicated and currently, in my opinion, the most detrimental to homeowners are special assessments.
And I think that was echoed a lot through, let's just say like June for an election reason there. I'm going to, we got a little bit of time here. We got about a minute. So I'll ask this question of you, then we'll get an answer.
This is the
on
teaser.
The flip side. Yeah, this is the tease. I'm letting you know I'm reading your texts as you send them in. A home builder is offering a $7,500 promotion to either use toward home upgrades, toward closing costs, or to pay down to get a better interest rate. What is the best bang for the buck? Okay, it's split up right there. So you think about that and you give us
great question.
Others asking about, is it still a seller's market? Others wondering about some other items when it comes to, I think, a specific bank that I'll ask you as well.
You bet.
But I got to get you caught up with KFGO News. Paul Juergens in the News Center will get you all the latest headlines locally here. Keeping it real with Eric Hatch for the next, 30 minutes here on Afternoons Live. I'm Tyler Axe as your host. Eric Johnson's your producer. You got it locked in to 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM. KFGO.
KFGO News, mostly cloudy, 73 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. The Cass County State's Attorney's Office has charged a Minot man with negligent homicide and reckless endangerment in a deadly collision last January on I-94 west of Fargo. 43-year-old Mario Butler is also charged with driving under suspension and having no liability insurance. An SUV driven by a Bismarck man slammed into Butler's flatbed tow truck that had broken down. It was in the right driving lane. The State Patrol determined that Butler had called for another tow truck but left before it got there. 43-year-old Kelly Hagerot, who was a passenger in the SUV driven by her husband, was killed. The couple's two daughters, ages 9 and 14, were seriously hurt. A 49-year-old Fargo man is facing several felony charges after he allegedly assaulted a Barnes County Sheriff's deputy in Valley City. Dustin Lendy was being pursued by deputies in Cass County for a prior incident, and the pursuit ended when he fled into Barnes County in a car. Sheriff's deputies later responded to a call of a suspicious man in the lobby of a Valley City hotel, and when they approached Lendy to question him, he became combative and assaulted one of the deputies. A 10-month-old girl found at Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport has been safely reunited with her mother.
The BCA says this started Sunday night when a woman described as a person in crisis and not believed to be related to the girl was found with her. The BCA says the child had been identified and returned to its mother. The case is now being investigated by Minneapolis police.
Reporter Laura Oakes, 73. This is KFGO News. This is KFGO News. As the academic year kicks off, NDSU President David Cook has encouraged students, faculty, and staff to work toward a community of respect. Cook's video message was in response to comments made on a chat site by the head of the NDSU College Republicans, which used homophobic slurs. Cook calls the rhetoric hateful.
While the comments are protected free speech, I want to reaffirm that NDSU values a community that is inclusive and collegial, and those comments are not reflective of our NDSU values.
A central Minnesota school district has dropped a policy meant to keep staff from talking publicly about issues that might reflect negatively on the district. The policy came to light after the teachers' union in Becker, northwest of Minneapolis, filed a lawsuit. The policy had upset some teachers and LGBTQ allies who believe it would undermine equity and inclusion. The lawsuit said the policy that prevents staff from commenting publicly violates free speech laws. The school board at a special meeting voted to rescind the communication rules, a move that led the union to withdraw its lawsuit. A charter bus driver is facing charges after he was arrested for driving drunk with 35 students aboard in Northeastern Minnesota. 49-year-old Patrick Bullard of Cannon Falls is charged with DWI and drinking from an open bottle. State troopers responded Sunday morning to complaints that the bus was driving erratically. Bullard's blood alcohol was later found to be more than 6 times the limit to drive a bus. The students ranged in age from 11 to 14. 2 adult chaperones were on board with them. They were headed to a camp in northern Minnesota as part of a YMCA group. Decreasing clouds, patchy fog possible tonight. KFGO meteorologist Tom Shabansky is calling for about 55 for the low. We will be mostly sunny tomorrow, 77, the afternoon high. 80 Friday, partly sunny, a chance of showers, thunderstorms Friday night. Saturday, partly sunny, a slight chance of showers, thunderstorms, and mid-80s. And then mostly sunny Sunday, high of 88. Mostly cloudy, 73. Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
Eric Hatch is in the KFGO studio taking all your buying, selling real estate questions, and I teased, and you waited for an answer. A home builder is offering $7,500 promotion to either use toward home upgrades, toward closing costs, or to pay down to get a better interest rate. What is the best bang for my buck comes in?
So That's such a layered question when you talk about a bang for the buck, because I think money is emotional. If we're simply trying to say, how do I save the most money? Well, it always depends on your situation. My knee-jerk response to that is, if this is not a first-time purchase for you, the average first-time home buyer stays in their home on average 4 to 5 years.
What?
The average first-time home buyer stays in their home on average 4 to 5 years.
I doubled that.
Wow. Well,
I'm an outlier.
You're winning.
I went the distance, man.
The average home owner lives in their property. It used to be between 9 and 10 years. 2021, we saw the first dip to average 8 years. Now, a lot of people moved because interest rates were great and their homes were now used for offices and schools, and they stared at the same walls. So a lot of people had retail therapy over the last couple of years. But on average, how long has your Gam lived in her house, right? 50 years. That was the story of my grandparents. For as long as I knew them, they lived in the same house.
My entire life, at least.
So think about how fast first-time home buyers are moving. So to the texter's question, if this is a second home purchase for you, I would beg to say that you're going to stay there on average 10 years if you hit that national average. And if you're staying there 10 years, buying down a lower interest rate is the best use of that dollar. If you're staying there 4 or 5 years, it's not the best use of that dollar. But let's talk about the actual emotional tie to it, right? You could do closing costs. That is all dependent on cash out of pocket. If you have the cash, I think it's okay to put it towards closing costs. It's just a cost of doing real estate. So I wouldn't say I'd put it towards closing costs unless you were super short on cash. I would say to consider some upgrades in your home. Your home's going to need a deck. Your home's going to need appliances. Your home's going to need sprinklers and sod and all those things. Your home is going to need, or at least you're going to want, upgraded carpeting or a new fireplace and those sorts of things. If you don't do it right away, it's really hard to do later. My architect friend, his name's Chris Hawley, does an amazing job for so many people in town. When I did a remodel on my house, he said to me, Eric, like there's always that, well, I might as well. And my bill grew 60% in the remodel process, not because of him, but because of me. And what happened was I said, if I do it right, I only cry once. Right? It's going to hurt right away, but I can tie it into a mortgage, or I can tie it into a long, drawn-out home equity plan, and I won't feel that pain so much. But if I have to go and constantly live in projects, that is a pain that I don't want to deal with.
Very good.
Yeah. That was maybe more robust than you expected, Tyler.
That was very thoughtful.
Oh, thank you.
I'm glad I gave you enough time to really put that together.
Thank you, buddy.
Just looking out for you, man. CBS National News on the way. Again, your questions, if you send them in. You can also call us at 237-594. Another question comes in. We'll get the answer. Is it still a seller's market? That's one of the many questions that are coming in. Eric Cash, he's going to be sticking around till 5 o'clock as is Afternoons Live. That's what you're listening to. I'm Tyler Axis. Stay with us. 5270 is the short code for the Eye Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. And you got questions for Eric Hatch, and he'll answer them. Tyler, can you ask Eric, is it still a seller's market?
Yes.
Okay. Well, elaborate, please. Go on.
Okay. I talked so much the last time. I didn't know if you were going to let me keep going.
You're supposed to be the one that's talking, not me. I've got it out of my system, man.
Yeah, it is a seller's market. Not as much as we have seen over the last 2 years. The COVID market was the busiest seller's market in the history of the United States, busier than we had ever seen. We are now back to what I think reflects a 2019 market, a 2018 market. Those were still seller's markets, and here's how we determine a seller's market. Of course, supply and demand are the way in which it's there, but we oftentimes have to take a look at what's called the absorption rate. The absorption rate is an insider's term about the reflective number of homes that are on the market based on the current demand. So we take a look at this number, and if it's anywhere near 6 months of inventory, that means that we are in a balanced market. Anything shorter than that is a seller's market. Anything longer than that is a buyer's market. And we currently, when we look at the inventory that we have, if there were no homes listed today and beyond, how many months would it take to sell the current inventory? So that's the absorption rate. Okay. We were at about a 1.7 faster and the most aggressive market we've seen here. You go to other metros like Phoenix or to Denver, they had about a 0.3 to 0.5 months of inventory. So homes hit the market. They usually had 20 or 30 offers in a Phoenix area, and it's sold. Things that, it's just absolute chaos. Yeah. Homes selling for $250,000 over the asking price, waiving every inspection and contingency, all cash, closing in 10 days. That was like the norm. Where we find ourselves now is there's about 2.25 to progressing to 2.5 months of inventory. That's still very much a seller's market. Sellers are still in control here, but they maybe aren't going to see, locally, we didn't necessarily always see 20 or 30 offers, but we would see 5 to 10 on homes that were priced right. Now, we don't see homes that are necessarily always flying off the shelves that quickly. However, the homes that are priced right, and this market, to get the pricing right, takes some massive intentionality and accuracy. And it changes minute by minute and day by day. So to get that pricing right, if you get it right, you should still expect multiple offers on your home if you're in an average price point in the major metro area. But 5 to 10 offers, I probably wouldn't hold your breath for it. So we're seeing price reductions now for the first time in 2.5 years. We're seeing canceled and expired listings, meaning that the seller's so frustrated or it sits on the market for as long as the contract allows. And so those are now showing up for the first time ever. But that is a standard market for us. The market hasn't shifted to a terrible spot. It has normalized back to 2018, 2019 types of pacing.
Yeah, I hear your ads for your keeping it real right here.
How do I sound? Do I sound great?
You sound enthusiastic about the career that you have chosen here, about perusing and being snooping on neighbors.
Yeah.
And there's some neighbors where they've had this, the for sale sign up for a long time, and walking by one, I'm like, I don't think I ever saw a sold on that. The sign's gone. There's vehicles in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. I have no idea if they're the current owners or if they did in fact sell. But let's say, as you're given the example, our contract expires, and then seller get tired of it, so they just walk away. They decide, okay, I'm going to be in this house for another couple of years. Or what options do those people have?
So if your listing doesn't sell, you, of course, can choose to just simply stay put unless life is moving you out of the area or you're in a divorce or something like that. And so instead of selling, maybe one of the husband or wives chooses to stay there, right? And they buy the other person out. So that's one of the options, is you simply stay put. The second is you can rent it out, right? You're able to rent your property. There are rules in our greater metro area of how many unrelated people can live under one roof. Any more than 3, and you'll get dinged and shut down by the city if you have any more than 3 unrelated people.
Boy, my college, we got away with a lot of things. And I didn't know that this was one of them.
The Roosevelt Association, especially up by NDSU.
Oh, we've been talking a lot about Roosevelt over the last few months.
Isn't that the truth? They keep a very watchful eye on their neighborhood with a lot of pride, and folks, if they're seeing more than 3 unrelated people that live there, usually that gets called in. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Thanks, neighbors, for never calling us in on the street to which we lived and had a lot of different people moving in and out from time to time. But that's
times have changed. Yeah,
changed a lot.
And so maybe that's why people need student loan relief. Look at me bring this full circle. Is because they're paying more for rent because they can't have as many people stay there.
That's a callback there. Yeah, it's all just everything's the rent's too damn high.
That's right.
That's why we're trying to get people to buy homes.
That's right. There's also options of contract for deed, which means you're essentially the bank. The person is paying you. You're still paying the mortgage, but they're paying you with the intent that they'll buy the property when they save up enough money or when their credit is better. Or sometimes you simply lose the home to foreclosure or short sale. Now, people have been waiting, chomping at the bit, saying, I want to wait until the market crashes. And once it crashes, I'm going to go and buy that foreclosed home. Do you know that it's less than 0.5% of homes that are foreclosed in the U.S.? Remember, we are protected here in this Red River Valley bubble, but less than 0.5% of homes in the U.S. are actually even subject to foreclosure right now. So I don't think that waiting is going to get you what you want.
This is a great question that comes in. We've talked a lot about interest rates on a variety of things, and this one's Eric, are rising interest rates having an effect in home sales yet? Like, are the higher interest rates, now you talked about this, still historically in consideration low, but it is double what it was, say, just a few short months ago. Has it impacted the market yet here?
It did. Okay. And I've used this example, I think, on air before, but the fact that anybody's even listening, I don't know if you're going to remember. I don't remember half the things I say.
We get new listeners all the time.
I'll tell you that. Thank you. Yeah. Glad to have you listening, Texter. If you wanted to buy a pair of shoes at Scheels and you saw an ad online or in the newspaper that said, hey, these shoes are $100, usually $150. You're going to wait a couple days, and then you finally go to Scheels, and you're like, hey, I want those shoes that were, $100. And Scheels is going to say, sorry, that sale ended 2 days ago. And so you're like, son of a gun! I can't get my shoes, right? And so you're going to walk out frustrated because you can't get the deal, and you're going to go home and live in your stinky old shoes with some holes in them. And that's what happened in real estate is people went home frustrated that they couldn't get the same deal, saying, man, son of a gun, I can't get the deal, so I'm going to walk away. But then they feel the breeze in their shoes and they feel the discomfort in their shoes. And now they're coming back saying, I guess I'll pay full price. And so we saw about a 45-day slowdown in the market where I think a lot of consumers were feeling the pain and the frustration of these interest rates have changed my opportunity. And I'm really frustrated with that. Now people are still coming back saying, I guess I'll get the shoes. They still want the better deal. They can't get the better deal, and they recognize they still need the shoes. They need the house, and so they're moving forward.
I remember that scenario last time because I said we're going to send an invoice to Scheels for all the free plugs.
Here it comes, Steve. Watch out.
Yeah, Steve Scheels, you just open up that KFGO letter once you get that. You got time for one more question or two. I got to get you this weather update from Tom Schmansky. We are 10 minutes until 5 o'clock. Eric Hatch is with us here on Afternoons Live. Stick around.
So we've been on, actually, I've really enjoyed the show today because we talked about student loan relief and what that looks like, and how there's been actually opportunities in real estate to find your deal. And then we've talked about, of course, is it a seller's market? Is it a buyer's market? What's happening? I want to talk specifically for people who are in search of opportunity, because that's what's happening with student loan relief. That's what we had talked about earlier, is where's my opportunity right now? And the biggest opportunity I see is, of course, buying and selling real estate. I can talk to you till your ears bleed about the excitement there. But I will actually say that I think the greatest fulfillment I've found is a career in real estate. And I think that it's one of those jobs that people are drawn to, and then it has a huge failure rate. 87% of realtors fail in their first 5 years, Tyler. It's a crazy statistic because they come in and usually they're under-trained, they're under-mentored, they're not taking it seriously enough. They aren't following a rhythm because now you're an independent contractor. And we've developed this amazing system at Hatch Realty where we've taken people and we have nearly 100% success rate, not failure rate, success rate of people that have joined our company and have found really, really great success. And so I'm inevitably proud of what we do as a company, and we're on the grow right now. We're looking to bring in a handful of agents this year and a ton next year. So if someone's listening and they're currently licensed, they're thinking about getting their license, or if you're stuck at a job that feels like you have no opportunities, I loved the idea of real estate because the idea that I could make more the better I was, that my hustle would have financial gain to it. It's why I started waiting tables when I was 14 years old, is because did I want to work at Hornbacher's or did I want to work at the Shack? And I worked at the Shack, and I chose to work there because I could make more based on my skill set. And real estate is that gig for you. And so if somebody has an insatiable appetite for growth, if they're looking for an opportunity, if they're looking for the best mentorship in the business, I think we have that for them. And so if somebody's interested, go to hatchrealty.com. We have some job postings right now, and sign up and get this wheel rolling.
Very good. Again, that website one more time.
Hatchrealty.com.
All right. You
hey.
catch those ads throughout the weekdays here on KFJ. Eric, it's always fun. We'll
Thanks,
talk
Tyler.
again
It was a joy.
in like 2 weeks.
I'll be back.
Maybe 2 weeks. I don't know. We'll figure that out off air. Folks, usually second Wednesday, but if not a Wednesday of the month, we have Eric Catch and taking your questions. Thanks for sending those in. And thank you for everybody that sent in all your thoughts on the student loan thing. I apologize. I got to maybe a third of the messages sent in. The conversation's not going anywhere. We'll pick that up tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow we do have a lot coming your way. It is Thursday. That means Spencer Worth, the Meat Dude, brought to you by All Sauger Meats and Big Deck Barbecue. We'll tell you about what they've got in store for you with Spencer Wirt. Also, we've got Audibles brought to you by Don's Car Wash. Mark Freeze, a friend of the show. We're going to talk about pot legislation that's going to be before your very eyes on a ballot. You can vote for it if you want. He'll answer some of your questions. That's all coming up tomorrow, though, folks. That means this is it for me today. I'm Tyler Axis, your host here on Afternoons Live. I'll be back tomorrow from 2 to 5. Until then, you drive safely. You take care of yourself. I'll check in tomorrow right here on KFGO.